Have you ever met someone whose charm felt more unsettling than comforting? Someone who, at first glance, appeared effortlessly magnetic with warm smiles, captivating stories, perfectly timed laughter, but something deep within you whispered caution. You couldn't quite place it, but beneath their inviting surface lay a quiet discomfort, a tension between their seemingly genuine expressions. This feeling isn't paranoia. It's intuition recognizing something Carl Jung warned humanity about: the psychological mask, the persona. According to Jung, every person wears a mask, an external identity carefully crafted to interact smoothly with society. But some masks are dangerously convincing, expertly hiding intentions that are anything but benign. Think about it. Every day you encounter people whose true motives remain hidden behind a polished facade. Friends, partners, colleagues, even those who claim to protect or inspire you. Jung argued that our conscious lives represent merely the visible tip of a psychological iceberg. Beneath the surface, lurking quietly, lies the vast unknown of the subconscious, including aspects of our personalities we'd prefer remain unseen. But what if these hidden depths contain more than harmless secrets? What if, concealed behind an inviting mask, lurks manipulation, deception, or something darker still? Jung warned that some individuals skillfully manipulate the persona to deceive and control, using charm as camouflage to penetrate your emotional defenses, leaving you vulnerable to betrayal, exploitation, or profound psychological damage. This danger is not purely theoretical. You've probably encountered it yourself, perhaps brushing it aside as irrational suspicion or dismissing your discomfort as social anxiety. Yet, according to Jung, your intuitive unease may be your most reliable alarm. In a world increasingly obsessed with curated perfection, carefully crafted online images, flawless reputations, and seemingly authentic connections, it becomes ever harder to distinguish truth from illusion. But Jung urges us to recognize that not every mask is protective. Some are predatory. Are you truly seeing people for who they are? Or are you just falling for the illusion they're desperate for you to believe? Picture this: someone you trust deeply, someone you've let into your life, who suddenly reveals intentions so different from their presented self that reality itself feels fractured. Such moments devastate because they challenge your very perception of truth and safety. Jung insists this danger is avoidable if only we pay closer attention to subtle psychological signals. What exactly are these signals? How can you tell when charm turns toxic, when warmth masks danger? Today we delve into Jung's profound insights, revealing how to recognize and understand these psychological warnings. By the end of this exploration, you'll know exactly when to trust, and more importantly, when to run. Within every person lives a hidden darkness, a part of ourselves we dare not reveal, even to our closest friends. Carl Jung named the shadowy realm of the mind the shadow, the unconscious collection of traits and impulses we deny, suppress, and bury deep beneath the surface of our identities. It contains our hidden desires, our darkest fears, and above all, our suppressed aggression and manipulative tendencies. Most terrifyingly, it exists within everyone, no exceptions. But why does the shadow matter? Because what we fail to acknowledge openly becomes our invisible master. According to Jung, when we ignore the shadow, refusing to confront or even admit it exists, it grows stronger beneath our awareness, secretly shaping our decisions, influencing our behaviors, and even distorting our relationships. The shadow controls most effectively when it remains hidden, silently pulling strings we never even realize are attached to us. Imagine a man, well-liked, respected at work, a model father and husband. On the surface, his life seems perfect. But beneath the calm exterior simmers an anger he's refused to acknowledge, carefully hidden behind smiles, patience, and reassuring words. One evening, during a harmless conversation, a slight criticism from his wife ignites an unexpected rage. He lashes out, surprising both himself and his family with a fury utterly out of character. He feels shocked, almost possessed, and instantly tries to rationalize his outburst. "I was stressed," he tells himself, refusing to acknowledge the deeper truth, that the anger has always been there, hidden, suppressed, accumulating quietly. This man is a prisoner to his shadow because he has denied its existence for too long. By failing to recognize this hidden aggression, he's unwittingly allowed it control, letting it erupt with devastating unpredictability. Similarly, picture someone who presents themselves as compassionate, kind, always ready to help. Behind their constant generosity, however, lies resentment, a sense of entitlement they've never admitted even to themselves. Gradually, their generosity turns subtly manipulative. They use kindness as currency, unconsciously leveraging favors and compassion to bind others emotionally, to gain subtle control. When someone refuses their help, they're quietly hurt, passively resentful, yet they never openly express it. Instead, this resentment festers, poisoning relationships invisibly, manifesting in quiet guilt trips, passive-aggressive remarks, or a subtle withdrawal of affection, leaving others confused and anxious. This is the hidden shadow manipulating through generosity, turning kindness into subtle psychological control. In both scenarios, the shadow thrives precisely because it remains hidden from conscious view. And while recognizing your own shadow is challenging, it's infinitely harder to recognize it in someone else, especially someone who carefully crafts a convincing persona of perfection or virtue. Yet Jung insists awareness is possible. Learning to see the shadow, both our own and that of others, is the first crucial step toward freedom. Only when you openly confront this inner darkness, acknowledging even the most uncomfortable truths, can you regain conscious control. But if you ignore it, the shadow grows stronger, pulling you deeper into manipulation, deceit, and emotional chaos until the darkness you refuse to face consumes everything around you, including yourself. Carl Jung didn't just theorize about the dark corners of our minds. He explicitly identified the warning signs we must never ignore. These psychological red flags, often subtle and easily dismissed, indicate something deeply troubling beneath a person's carefully crafted exterior. Recognizing these signs can mean the difference between emotional safety and devastating psychological harm. First, beware emotional inconsistency. The unsettling rhythm of affection followed by withdrawal, attention shifting abruptly into silence, closeness suddenly becoming distance. You've likely felt this before. One moment, someone showers you with praise and affection. The next moment, they disappear without explanation, leaving you anxious and uncertain, desperate to reclaim their warmth. Jung saw this as deliberate psychological manipulation, conditioning you into emotional dependency. The unpredictability keeps you permanently off balance, ensuring your emotional state revolves around their moods and whims. If you recognize this pattern, this roller coaster of affection and abandonment, Jung warns you're standing on dangerous ground. Next comes manipulative empathy, an insidious technique that weaponizes your own compassion against you. These individuals seem incredibly attentive to your feelings, almost reading your mind. Yet somehow, their empathy feels hollow or performative. They masterfully mimic empathy, using carefully chosen words to convince you they understand and deeply care. Yet their empathy carries a hidden price, subtly binding you in obligation, quietly ensuring you feel guilty if you question their intentions. Think about moments online. Someone publicly supports your struggles, seemingly an ally, only to later leverage this emotional capital to manipulate your trust or silence your doubts. Jung identified manipulative empathy as one of the most dangerous psychological tactics because it exploits your greatest strength, your capacity to feel deeply for others. Equally dangerous is gaslighting, an insidious form of emotional manipulation designed to undermine your sense of reality. Gaslighting begins subtly, a small denial of something they said, questioning your memory, casually dismissing your perceptions as overly sensitive or mistaken. Gradually, these minor incidents build, leaving you doubting your intuition, questioning your judgment, and ultimately eroding your confidence in your own sanity. Imagine a friend or partner who consistently denies hurtful comments they've made, repeatedly insisting you misunderstood or misremembered. Jung emphasized that gaslighting doesn't simply distort your reality, it slowly destroys your trust in yourself, leaving you vulnerable and dependent, easy prey for manipulation. Projection of guilt is another psychological red flag Jung highlighted. Manipulators often deflect blame by accusing others of their own hidden impulses and flaws. They'll label you selfish, dishonest, or manipulative, traits they secretly embody. This tactic not only diverts attention from their wrongdoing, but forces you into a defensive position, compelled to justify your innocence rather than addressing their behavior. Consider online arguments, where aggressors immediately accuse others of intolerance or hatred, the very impulses driving their own aggression. According to Jung, projection allows manipulators to cloak their faults in righteous indignation, making it incredibly difficult to confront or escape their psychological influence. Finally, watch carefully for an overly cultivated persona, a polished mask meticulously maintained to hide deeper flaws. Jung believed the persona itself isn't inherently dangerous, but when someone obsessively guards their public image, consistently presenting an idealized self without vulnerability or flaws, there's often something deeply troubling hidden beneath. If a person's online presence seems almost unrealistically perfect, constant virtue signaling, flawless emotional control, and carefully scripted interactions, be cautious. Jung warns us that behind an immaculate facade often lies severe emotional instability, unresolved anger, or suppressed aggression waiting to erupt unpredictably. These 5 warning signs: emotional inconsistency, manipulative empathy, gaslighting, projection of guilt, and an overly perfected persona, form a psychological roadmap. Carl Jung challenges us not only to recognize these dangerous signals in others, but also to face the uncomfortable truths they may reveal about ourselves. Awareness, he insists, is our greatest defense. Only when we dare to confront manipulation openly and honestly can we protect our emotional lives and regain control of our own psychological destinies. Today, Carl Jung's warnings echo louder than ever, as modern society increasingly becomes the perfect breeding ground for shadows and manipulative personas. Social media, the very fabric of our contemporary interactions, thrives on carefully curated images, false intimacy, and the relentless pursuit of an illusionary perfection. It offers the perfect stage, an endless theater, where authentic selves vanish behind meticulously constructed facades, and truth becomes indistinguishable from fabrication. Think about your feed for a moment. What do you actually see? Lives filtered through digital lenses, perfect vacations, flawless relationships, endless achievements, all carefully edited and curated to evoke admiration, envy, or validation. But beneath these polished surfaces, behind every perfect photo, lies an unspoken truth: insecurity, loneliness, anxiety, the shadow we refuse to show. In our desperation for validation, we unwittingly empower our hidden darkness, allowing it to shape the personas we project to the world. Jung believed our refusal to acknowledge this darkness enables it to dominate our behaviors and interactions, subtly yet powerfully. Social media amplifies this phenomenon exponentially. It not only normalizes performative personalities, but actively rewards them. The more convincingly someone can craft their mask, the more likes, followers, and power they accumulate. Thus, authenticity has become increasingly rare, an endangered virtue drowned beneath the tide of performative existence. But why should this alarm us? Because manipulative personas thrive best in environments where illusion is more valuable than reality, and social media is the ideal ecosystem for manipulation. Digital anonymity provides fertile ground for shadows to run rampant, allowing individuals to freely wield emotional manipulation and psychological warfare with almost no accountability. Online propaganda exploits our vulnerability to carefully constructed personas, convincing, charismatic identities weaponized to shape opinions, manipulate emotions, and direct mass behavior. Ask yourself, have you ever been caught up in outrage, only to later realize you were manipulated by misinformation or distorted narratives? Ever felt deeply connected to someone online, only to discover their identity was merely an elaborate facade designed to exploit your trust or manipulate your emotions? The power of Jung's shadow lies precisely in its subtlety. It rarely reveals itself openly, preferring to operate quietly in the shadows of digital anonymity, subtly distorting perceptions, relationships, and truths. This digital world we've constructed, obsessed with illusions and addicted to artificial connection, presents an unprecedented threat. The very tools promising greater connection paradoxically deepen isolation, rendering us vulnerable to the psychological manipulations Jung warned about decades ago. We must face a critical question. How much of your emotional reality, your perceptions, your beliefs, even your fears, have been silently shaped by personas crafted behind screens, shadows hidden beneath smiles? In a world where authentic connection has become increasingly rare, what is the true cost of our digital illusion? Who benefits from your insecurities, your loneliness, your need for validation? And most importantly, what happens when we can no longer tell where illusion ends and reality begins? These questions demand urgency because Jung understood something profoundly important. When truth becomes indistinguishable from deception and genuine connections vanish beneath layers of artifice, we no longer control our own lives. Instead, we become puppets, dancing silently, controlled by invisible strings, pulled by shadows we never even knew existed. To confront the manipulative forces hidden behind the masks we encounter every day, Carl Jung offers a revolutionary starting point. Begin by facing your own shadow. It's easy, perhaps even comforting, to believe manipulation and deception only exist externally in others. But Jung warns us that until we bravely acknowledge the darkness within ourselves, we'll remain vulnerable to external threats, easily manipulated by the shadows of others. Self-awareness is your strongest defense. Take an honest look inward, exploring the parts of yourself you usually avoid: the anger, insecurity, envy, and fear. Recognize your tendencies toward manipulation or emotional dependency. Jung believed these insights aren't weaknesses. They're essential tools for strength and resilience. By consciously recognizing your shadow, you reclaim control over it. Instead of your hidden impulses controlling you subconsciously, you now harness their energy constructively. Awareness doesn't remove your shadow. Rather, it transforms it from enemy to ally. But awareness alone isn't enough. Jung emphasizes emotional resilience, your capacity to withstand emotional storms without losing yourself. Emotional resilience comes from clarity and boundary setting. Start by clearly defining your boundaries. What behaviors, no matter how subtle or convincing, will you refuse to tolerate? When someone uses emotional inconsistency, manipulative empathy, gaslighting, or projection, practice stepping back emotionally. Trust your intuition. Learn to honor that quiet internal voice warning you when something feels wrong. Boundaries aren't barriers isolating you from meaningful connections. They're protective lines guarding your psychological integrity. Confronting your shadow is more than psychological self-defense. It's a rebellious act against societal manipulation. In a world drowning in performative personas and carefully hidden agendas, authenticity becomes radical. Refusing to play along with manipulation, resisting false intimacy and manufactured emotions, is an act of defiance against social conditioning and hidden control. Every time you embrace radical honesty, both internally and externally, you dismantle manipulative power structures. Jung challenges you personally. Are you willing to courageously face your darkest truths? Are you ready to reject society's comforting illusions in exchange for authenticity and freedom? True strength emerges when you acknowledge your vulnerabilities openly and compassionately, no longer hiding behind false personas or denying uncomfortable truths. Ultimately, confronting your shadow isn't simply an intellectual exercise. It's profoundly transformative. It empowers you to reclaim authority over your own life, reducing your vulnerability to external manipulation and deceit. This process requires courage, resilience, and honesty. But the reward, a life lived authentically, free from hidden control and emotional exploitation, is worth every uncomfortable moment spent facing yourself. In an age dominated by illusion, Carl Jung's warnings become more critical than ever. Our world, saturated with carefully curated personas, deceptive empathy, and hidden manipulations, urgently requires that we learn how to discern truth from deception. These aren't mere philosophical musings. They are survival skills, psychological lifelines essential in an era where authenticity is increasingly overshadowed by performance. Today, manipulation hides behind every click, behind every carefully filtered image in scripted interaction. Jung's insights challenge us to reject these illusions, not merely for abstract morality, but for personal survival. Without confronting our own hidden darkness, the shadows that quietly control us from within, we remain perpetually vulnerable, easily manipulated by external forces skilled at exploiting our unconscious weaknesses. Yet embracing Jung's teachings isn't simply about evading danger. It's fundamentally about reclaiming freedom, psychological, emotional, and spiritual. Authentic relationships, genuine intimacy, and radical honesty require courageously facing uncomfortable truths within ourselves and those around us. They demand tearing down facades, discarding comforting illusions, and daring to be seen, truly seen, in all our imperfect authenticity. This journey toward authenticity can feel daunting. The path is often uncomfortable, forcing us to acknowledge unsettling truths about who we are and what we desire. But Jung believed this was precisely the point. True freedom isn't comfortable, safe, or easy. It emerges only when we confront discomfort openly, bravely stepping beyond the boundaries of social conditioning, manipulation, and false personas. Authentic connection can't exist in the shadow of deceit. Meaningful relationships require openness, vulnerability, and unfiltered honesty. They thrive on clarity, self-awareness, and mutual accountability, free from emotional manipulation or hidden agendas. Embracing Jung's insights means choosing radical truth over comforting lies, sincerity over manipulation, and depth over shallow performance. In doing so, you reclaim control over your emotional destiny, stepping decisively out of the manipulator's reach and into genuine freedom. Ultimately, Carl Jung invites you into a profound, transformative choice. A choice between hiding behind masks of comfort or bravely removing them to reveal your authentic self. This choice is yours alone. Will you continue hiding behind illusions, allowing unseen forces and manipulative personas to quietly consume you? Or will you courageously face your shadow, break free from manipulation, and embrace deeper truth, meaningful connection, and genuine freedom? This isn't merely a decision about relationships or self-awareness. It's fundamentally about your humanity. By choosing authenticity over manipulation, clarity over confusion, and honesty over illusion, you assert your power against unseen forces seeking to control your emotional reality. You aren't simply fleeing danger, you're running towards something infinitely greater: personal freedom, genuine intimacy, and profound meaning. The mask you wear, the mask everyone wears, is a choice. Carl Jung urges you, now more urgently than ever, to make that choice consciously, intentionally, and courageously. Because ultimately, either you will remove the mask or the mask will consume you entirely.